Teaching your puppy to come when called is one of the most important behaviors you can teach your dog. Having a dog who can be trusted off leash and come reliably just makes life with a dog much more enjoyable. The easiest way to teach this is by using a food item to lure a dog over. So it starts off very simply, come. Yes, good boy, Dexter. So Dexter gets rewarded for coming toward me. He doesn't have to come from far away. He doesn't have to come off leash. He's only been on the planet Earth for 12 weeks. I can't ask him to join the doctorate program just yet. He has to stay within his grade level. So he's a baby. We're taking baby steps. All right? While he finishes that, let me also make a point. When you are using food, use tiny, tiny pieces. You can use a dog's kibble, or you can cut up small pieces of cheese. This is dehydrated lamb lung. They also sell liver and things like that are really high value to a dog. When you do use them, don't keep them in a Ziploc bag and don't keep them someplace where it's going to make a lot of noise or be really super obvious to a dog. I tend to have a little treat pouch like this that I can keep behind my back so the dog can't see what I'm doing. All right? It's not about the food, it's about the command. So when I'm asking him, Dexter, come. Yes, good boy. So I'm moving away from him a tiny bit, giving him the command, and at this age, he's just happy to come over to me no matter what it is I'm saying or I'm doing. So we're conditioning a response from him when I use that command. So a conditioned response, a good example of that is if you are at a meeting and everybody has a phone, their cell phone out and it's on the table, and one vibrates, everybody checks their phone. Your phone is a really reliable and consistent trainer, so you need to be the same way. You give him the command, he gives you the response, you give him the reward, okay? When he does it, I'm picking one sound that tells him he's doing the right thing. I'm gonna say yes, okay? Now I like to say yes instead of good boy because we tell dogs good boy for just about everything, all right? He walks into the room, he's cute, good boy. You wanna make sure that you're using a specific sound that says he's accomplished a task and is earning a reward, okay? So I'm gonna say, Dexter, come. Yes, good boy. All right. We're gonna do one more and then I'm gonna see if he can handle it being off leash, okay? Now being off leash in an enclosed area that's very much under my control, I'm not that concerned about. I wouldn't necessarily start this at the dog park. I wouldn't start this someplace where the distraction is way over what he's capable of. Dexter, come. Yes, good boy. All right. So you notice I'm saying yes, then good boy. I don't mind that so much. You just want to make sure that yes is first. He knows that yes means I get the reward. Okay? Dexter, come. Dexter, come. Yes, good boy. So you can even, from further and further away, you can also give the dog encouragement. So they look at you and you immediately, yeah, right, get excited, make a loud noise, high-pitched noises, get excited for him. Let him know that he's doing the right thing. Dexter, come. Yes, good boy. All right, so he's getting the hang of it now. He knows it more and more that he's getting rewarded for this behavior. Dexter, come. Good boy. Now, big mistakes people make is they'll call the dog over for punishment, even if it's by mistake. You're at the dog park, come. The dog doesn't listen to you. Come, come, come. You're repeating yourself, which is teaching the dog how to ignore you. They finally come and you leave the park. Something that didn't work out very well for the dog. The dog will stop listening to you. Dogs will only do what works for dogs. All right? This is a quick, easy exercise. You can practice this before every meal, 2 or 3 times a day for a few minutes at a time, and you'll start getting more and more reliability out of your dog. And that's how you teach your puppy how to come when called. So one of the most important social cues you can teach your dog is how to greet your guests politely without jumping on them, biting at them, barking at them, etc., etc. There are so many things that can go wrong in early socialization if you just don't have guests in the house when the dog is learning. They can come to fear them, or they can come to have it be such a rare and spectacular thing that they're overly exuberant about it. So when you do have a young puppy like this, make sure that you're inviting as many people over as possible. Throw little puppy parties, let people handle and pet and love your dog up. That's the first step. Now, as the dog is growing and learning things like sit and like stay, they tend to learn those things initially for a reward like a cookie, but it doesn't have to be always for the cookie. They can start applying that to other rewards in life. So the dog can learn that before you greet it when you come home, or before a guest comes into your house, that before they get to say hello, they have to put their behind on the floor. And then you reach down and pet the dog and give your exuberant greeting. If the dog then immediately jumps up, take your attention away and ignore the dog for a moment. Redirect the dog for the sit, and then come down and reward it again. If the dog learns that the only way he gets your attention and the attention of guests is by keeping his behind on the floor, that's going to become his go-to move. And that's a much more pleasant way to be greeted by a dog, especially larger breeds. A lot of times people don't actually do this with smaller dogs because they think it's not that big a deal. But remember, the dog is still a dog and he's still learning, and he should really learn how to be polite. It's just as important as a big dog. So all dogs should learn. Guests come in, they sit down, they get greeted. If it's a hard thing to coach people to do, and you'll know certain guests will be coachable, other guests would not be coachable. So if you could tell your guests to ignore the dog until the dog is doing a sit or until you can direct the dog to sit, great. If they cannot be coached, put that dog on a leash. And if he goes to jump up, you turn away and bring him away from the guest by a foot or two, ask him for a sit, and then he can reapproach. But it has to be something that he's doing in a calm and polite manner. Give that a try, and that would be my suggestion for teaching your dog how to greet guests politely. So most puppies are very excitable, exuberant, happy animals, and that's something we shouldn't necessarily discourage. What we can do is teach them a fun way to settle down when it's time to settle down. One way we can do this is to purposely encourage the dogs to be kind of wild and crazy, jump around, try and get them a little bit overly excited so that we can then teach them to settle down. Now, the first thing you need to do is teach your dog how to lie down on command. And you can do that by following a lure to the floor. Once a dog knows how to lie down, you can purposely get the dog excited, running around, jumping, barking, etc., and then see how fast you can get them to lie down on the floor and calm down. You can use the command settle down while you do it. So the dog is just getting used to going from, 60 miles an hour to zero, 60 miles an hour to zero. It's something that the dog is getting used to doing and enjoying doing. And you can start asking for it in real applied situations when the dog is really excited around guests, really excited around food, or any other particular situation. You can ask the dog to settle down. Now, be realistic about this. If you have a high-octane dog and you're keeping him crated all day, or he's in a pen all day, and you come home and you're tired from the end of your day, remember that it's just that you're coming home is the first exciting thing that he's had all day. So for him to be over exuberant and excited, it shouldn't be a surprise to you. Make sure that you're giving the dog plenty of outlets to get out some of that energy, and then train the dog that when we ask him to settle down, to lie on the ground and be still. And that's a great exercise for him to start understanding what it is you expect, and it's a great way to communicate with your dog what you expect from him when guests come or when there are other exciting things going on in his life. Give that a try, and that would be my suggestion for how you train your dog to settle down. So in some households, we really want our dog to be on the furniture. We want to snuggle with him on the couch, we want to sleep with him in the bed, and that's perfectly fine. Some houses, people are just not interested in having the dog on the furniture, and that's okay too. It has to be up to you, and the dog has to learn about the rules of the house. Either way, the dog should learn, if he's allowed up on the furniture, the dog should learn to wait for an invite from family members. It's a human space, and he should learn to ask permission for it. If the dog is just not allowed on the furniture at all, you have to make sure that the couch or the chair is not the only comfortable place to lie for the dog, which means you're getting him a nice, cushy, and soft bed to lay on. You might have to experiment with a few different ones to find the one that he really, really likes or she really, really likes. But then when you're not there to influence the behavior, I would put some folding chairs on the couch or put something else that blocks the dog from being able to get onto the couch. You can even flip the cushions on the couch up so that there's no place for the dog to comfortably land. But then make sure that if you're closing that window, that you're opening one somewhere else, which means the comfortable bed on the floor for him. And it can actually be near the couch, so the dog can be near you while you're sitting on the couch. A lot of times the dog just wants to jump up to be near you. And be careful not to give the dog too much negative attention for it, because attention's still attention. So if you're telling him no, off, sit, stay, down, off, a lot of times the dog is realizing that jumping on the couch seems to get a real rise out of you, and he can get a lot of attention from you that way. It should be something where you're able to redirect him to go to his own bed, and that jumping on the couch never really works. That means you have to be really consistent about, if you're not letting him on the furniture, then nobody in the house is letting him on the furniture. And it's not okay sometimes when you're in the mood for it. If you're going to do something like that, again, it goes into that whole ask permission portion. But if you're deciding that the rules of your house is dogs are off the furniture, it has to be consistent and clear to the dog. That's how I would teach you to keep dogs off the furniture. When you're going shopping for a new puppy, it's very easy to get overwhelmed with all the things that you find in a pet store. A lot of times this leads to buying things that you don't necessarily need. First and foremost, you're going to require some sort of confinement area. For a puppy in particular, this can really help with potty training. But for adult dogs also, they need to learn a little bit about your house before they just get free run of your living room. This is an exercise pen, and this is a good example of what would be considered a long-term confinement space. Also, you're going to require a crate of some kind, whether it's a wire crate or a closed-in travel crate are also fine. And then toys. I would look for things that you can stuff food into, such as Kongs or hollow bones. Something that the dog can use his mouth and his energy to work the food out of. I'll sometimes replace a high energy dog or a puppy. I'll replace his food bowl with a hollow toy that he can dissect food from. Now, you're going to require a nice, soft, comfortable bed that you can encourage the dog to sleep on instead of your couch or your bed. And these also give the dog a safe place and a comfortable place inside his crate to sleep on. Don't forget you're going to require water dishes and a travel bowl possibly also. That's really a good starting point for what you're going to require. Those are the necessities. There are a lot of cute, fun things you can get also, but that's where I would start for a shopping list for your dog. Teaching your puppy to drop something, it should be a fun and easy thing to do. Most dogs will scavenge and grab things off the floor, and I find that people have a tendency to just yell, drop it, drop it, drop it at the dog, but the dog really doesn't understand the language of what you're asking. So preparing a dog that drop it means literally spit whatever is in your mouth out, all right? And it takes time to do, but it's relatively easy, especially if you make it kind of fun and engaging. So I'm gonna ask Darwin here to come over here, and I'm gonna offer him this Flossie, which is a piece of dehydrated rawhide. And while he's getting it, I'm gonna let him get a good chew going here before I say, drop it. Good boy, and I offer him another food source out of my other hand. So you could do this with socks, paper towel, toilet paper, things that the dog has a tendency to steal. But just make sure you have control over it. He's on a leash, he can't run under the table with it. He can't disappear into his crate with it, where you put yourself in a weird situation with the dog. This is something that's right here. I'm right here with him, I have control over him. He puts it in his mouth and I say, drop it. Yes, good boy. Now this is a kind of a high value thing to drop, and I normally wouldn't ask you to start with something like this. At your house you can start with something that is a little bit easier for him to drop, one of his tug toys, one of his balls, something like that where you ask him for a drop. Now, once you do a few repetitions of this, you shouldn't need to use food anymore. He'll make the association with the word drop it. So dogs learn primarily by making association with sound. The same way a dog knows the sound of the treat jar or the sound of the cabinet that has his food in it, they can also learn the sound of a specific command and what it means to them. So if you say drop it, and drop it means you present a new food item for him that he drops one thing for and it's rewarding to him, he'll start dropping it automatically for the reward. Now, the big mistake people make is the dog will steal something specifically to get you to chase it around the house. So it's one of the funnier things you see when kids come home from school, nobody's paying attention to the dog will dart into the bedroom, grab one of the kids' favorite toys and run through the living room with it. He doesn't hide under the bed and chew it. He runs through the living room because he knows that that's how you start the dog show and you get everybody up chasing you around. This is something that you can automatically make it a more pleasant and exciting thing to drop something out of his mouth. Try not to use it so much for punishment. You'll see that after he's doing it with any repetition and any ease, we have a tendency to go, drop it, drop it, drop it, and yell at them. Try and keep it pleasant and exciting. He'll do what works best for him. Don't try and challenge him with it too much. All right, so that's a pretty easy way to teach your dog, drop it.